Welcome back. My name is Matt Reiners, and I'm one of the co-founders of Eversound, a company dedicated to improving quality of life for older adults by giving them the gift of hearing. Today, I'm joined by my friend Cole Smith, Corporate Director of Dementia Care Services for Brightview Senior Living. I've gotten to know Cole over the past year or so, and his outlook on life is refreshing and brings a zest that is inspirational. Thanks for joining me today, Cole.
Hey, Matt, thank you for having me on to talk about a topic that I'm very passionate about.
So let's talk about passionate, because Cole, you're one of the most passionate and amazing people that I've come across in my time. And how did you get into senior living, and where does that passion come from?
So the passion started when I was 8 years old. I started volunteering at a nursing home in my hometown. I was that awkward kid that didn't really fit in with my peers, and my dad suggested that I go volunteer at a nursing home. And from the first day, I was hooked. The residents they were my best friends. Anything that I wanted to do, they were excited to do with me. And I volunteered at that same place for 10 years, from 8 to 18, and just fell in love. I wasn't sure how I would get back to senior living. As I entered the workforce, I was a respiratory therapist, and my mentor from respiratory school called me 2 years after I graduated and said, I have an opportunity for you. And that's to be an educator with a nursing home company. So that was my introduction back into senior living, and absolutely love it.
So cool. Now, I've noticed you've spent the last 7 years or so focusing on helping people living with dementia. And I'm curious what your personal philosophy is when it comes to helping those, and, how is Brightview thinking about it?
So what's exciting is that Brightview and I share the same philosophy about caring for people living with dementia. And that's go beyond the golden rule of treat others as you would want to be treated to the platinum rule of treat others as they would want to be treated. The way you do that is to maximize independence, minimize limitations. And I think we really live the philosophy of if you have the right environment and you have the right people, the possibilities are endless. And that's why coming to Brightview felt like coming home.
I love it. And what I think one of the things too, you mentioned, right? It's great when your personal philosophy can line up with the person that you're trying to work with. And I love the platinum rule too, because the way that I want to be treated probably isn't the same as others. So that's just I love that. And so, Cole, I look at your background and in some of our conversations, I know you have an emphasis on helping those that are caring for those living with dementia, which I feel sometimes get overlooked, unfortunately. And I'm curious if there's anything you think that we can do to better help support them.
So what's funny is a diagnosis of dementia can feel both overwhelming and isolating, especially for those caring for those living with dementia. If you jump on the internet and start Googling, you have 100 million articles to read, but it seems like your world shrinks into an island of you and your loved one. So the best thing we can do to care for those caring for those living with dementia would be to just show up. You don't have to have the right thing to say. Just show up and say, how can I best help you?
Yeah. And I think it's so important, right? We think about the 80-20 and just being there. You don't need to have all the perfect words, but just showing that support, showing that love. It might be a little bit hard to show the empathy if you haven't gone through it yourself, but just being there for one another really seems to, help push that relationship forward. And just, everyone wants to feel connected too. So it's one of those ways that we can do that.
100%.
And so, Cole, I know one of the things within our industry is this idea of person-centered care. And I'm curious how you think we're implementing it as an industry. And then also I'd love to hear where you think we can do better.
So I think as an industry, at least from the 1992, when I started volunteering in a nursing home, to 2022 now, we've made huge strides. But the number one thing we can do is to continue to be curious, to really figure out the best way we can honor and respect those living with dementia, who they were before the disease or diagnosis, and who they are now. One of those things is to really get in and spend time with your residents and a lot of our residents have hearing impairment. So I think Eversound has been so beneficial, especially at Brightview. We use it when we're doing our assessment or when we're just sitting down and spending time with our residents. They just come to life when they can actually hear the conversations. It's so crazy how one little thing can do so much for them.
Yeah, and always appreciate the plug, Cole. But yeah, it is amazing how hearing loss can really just impact one's quality of life, right? And their overall well-being. And, I've always been in situations where if I can't hear, I kind of just tune out, unfortunately. So it's great to hear that, yourself and Brightview are being proactive to find solutions to just ultimately take that person-centered approach and helping your residents' quality of life.
Well, it's funny that during the pandemic, masks made it nearly impossible, and we would raise our voices to be heard better, which never works. So our residents would say, "Why are you shouting? Are you angry at me?" And it's like, let's get our Eversound out so that we can we don't have to shout for them to understand us.
Yeah. And I think one of the thing with hearing loss too, right? Like a lot of the times we read lips to some capacity, and I think we all just do it instinctually. And when people are wearing masks, it just makes it that much more difficult to really, do that. So it's great to see when being proactive again and finding those solutions. So kudos to you and your team for doing that.
Yeah, it was interesting. When I was a respiratory therapist, I had a gentleman he had a trach, and it was difficult to communicate. And I did try to raise my voice to get him to hear me better. And he finally said, "Could you back up? Reading your lips is what helps me." And I was like, oh my gosh, that was my aha moment.
Wow. I love that. So Cole, one of the questions I always like to ask every guest, if you could give other senior living providers just 3 guiding principles or words of advice as we're looking, through the next year, what would you say?
I'd say number 1, lead with kindness in everything that you do, with your associates, with your residents, with families, but most importantly, with yourself. The last 2 years were hard, and you've got to treat yourself with kindness and those around you. Number 2 would be assume the best in everyone. There's a quote that I love. It's quoted by 2 different people, so I'm not going to say who, just in case I get it wrong. But it says, "We judge ourselves by our ideals, and we often judge others by their actions." Well, if we could assume the best in everyone, life would be a lot better, because that's what we want others to do for us. And the last one is just show up. Good, bad, or ugly, just show up. I think that speaks volumes to your teams, to your residents, to your families. Not every day is going to be the best day, but there is something good in every day. So just show up.
All words to live by, Cole. And, when I hear you say those things and I've gotten to know you, you live that day in and day out. So thanks so much for coming on to the podcast. I know our listeners will get a lot out of this, and just appreciate the soul that you are.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you, Matt.